Hey my sugar bears, welcome back to my channel, Bougie AF. It's your host, JackieNicole. It's where I say stay bougie on them. It's me feeding you feminism for the soul. It's my soul food offering. It's where I apply pressure to issues by being critical and logical. Now don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's get to the commentary where I can guarantee you I will be doing too much because that's just me. And like Sheree said, who's gonna check me, boo? Welcome back, y'all. It's your host, JackieNicole, and you are tuned in and you are watching the Bougie AF channel. It's where I say stay bougie on them. But listen, if this is your first time here, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Listen, this is a little follow-up. This is not going to be too long, but I think sometimes I have a tendency to be extremely cheeky in videos and talk about a whole bunch of shit. And I do not apologize for those things. But at the same time, I am really dropping real shit, and I just hope you pick that up. So what I wanted to do a little follow-up, immediately after I did the Marc Lamonts unpopular opinion about the death penalty involving the Dylann Roof case, we had some news break of these gentlemen. And before I get there into this article about this news that I broke, my whole reason for covering the unpopular opinion by Marc Lamonts is because with being lineage and being ADOS and being an American descendant of slavery, we have a story to tell, right? And how we tell that story really does matter, right? The reason why we go out of our way sometimes, and it can be obnoxious and it can be over the top and it can be disgusting, about being really clear about who we are as people, right? And feeling as if though this country does owe us our reparations, and that's why we go really hard. It does go hand in hand with when we start talking about things about the death penalty in the laws and things that have been done in this country that were applied and done to Black people. And being able to tell that story and put it into context on why Marc Lamonts says, I don't believe in a death penalty, right? You got to know the history of the Black American people. ADOS people, right? ADOS by lineage and not by incorporation or with the organization, right? But ADOS people, we have a unique story, right? And I think sometimes that it gets lost, where a lot of times I've, encountered and growing up as a child, sometimes people, foreigners, people who move here and their children don't have a real sense of who we are in terms of Black people and what we've done in this country in terms of our history. And what we've gone through. There's an ignorance to some of that. I think sometimes people just think it's about racism and slavery for us. I think people just broadly want to think it's just about the concept of racism and think about our past experience as slavery as being the reason that we feel as if though we have a fight or we have a problem with this country and what has been done to us, right? I think it's really simple for some people to really think about it like that. But when you really get into it and you know the history of this country and you start talking about redlining, right? And you do start talking about the death penalty and you do start talking about things that white people felt empowered to do to Black people in terms of their own death penalty, in terms of they being the judge, jury, and the executioner in a lot of cases. Sort of like with Emmett Till, right? They believed he had did something because a white woman claimed he had did something in terms of whistling at her or looking at her and making her feel uncomfortable. That's our history in this country, right? Where someone has repeatedly and can lie on us, right? In terms of, I'm talking about Black people, right? Lie on us, and it results in us being put to death right? And that is something that has always happened. I talk about, and I gave you the example of the story of a girl who I knew, it didn't end in death penalty, but I need you to grasp our history. You have to grasp our history in this country, right? So you have stories. Before I even get to those stories, let's take the concept of the Karens, right? The Karens is really about white women who overreact and who really do too much in terms of interacting with Black people, a sense of entitlement, a sense of, can do whatever, right? It will make all types of false accusations in this self-entitlement, right? They'll make all types of accusations towards Black people, and without the cameras, which we have on our phones now, or people being around, those accusations would stick, right? Without anyone questioning them. We have examples of Karens being in Central Park and black people just being there, either bird watching or whatever the fuck they're doing. If they just sitting on a bench, they were minding their damn business. But what will you'll have a white person who feels some sort of way about your presence, right? Your presence makes them feel uncomfortable, so it's suspicious. So for them, that's enough for them to call the police. And in the midst of this woman, if you guys know the case and all this, know the situation, you can pull it up and watch the video. All this shit is allegedly still up. But if you know the case, so she calls the police, she's making a big deal, she's acting like we've seen this numerous times in these Karen videos, acting all scared as if though someone's doing this something to them. And we're talking about men and women. We've seen both type of reactions. Will lie and say somebody's trying to attack them. I've seen videos of Karens talking about, oh my God, get away from me, and the person's nowhere near them, right? We're talking about that element of people, that element of evilness, right? But we're also talking about us, meaning ADOS people who've experienced that on numerous occasions, right? I'm gonna list a few things, right? Growing up in the suburbs, I've seen a lot of black boys and heard of stories of black boys being accused of things by white women, and they either being expelled from school and getting in trouble for it, right? There's nobody to take their side, to speak up for them, or question the so-called person who's making these accusations. They are automatically guilty, right? So again, that's another instance when a lot of times just getting it wrong, right? White girl dating a black boy, and the white girl's father doesn't like black boy, and maybe the white girl sleeps with the black boy, and she sleeps with him, and the father finds out. You know how many times I do know of white girls lying and saying they've gotten raped. That exists, right? So we're talking about the element of lying and not being able. And so when Marc Lamonts says technology and all this other stuff and just not being able to get it right, because there's those elements that have happened continuously through our history. We all know how Emmett Till died. Somebody lied on him, right? Got it wrong. I don't care if that's not even the U.S. government, but the propensity for us to get it wrong is extremely high based on the human error and in racism, right? If someone is racist, and they feel some sort of way about a black person, they will lie on them, right? And they'll be killed. Most definitely in the 1950s and back in the day in Jim Crow era in the South, that was most definitely a thing. And that's how Emmett Till lost his life. A white woman lied on him. She got to live her life, and her husband got to live their life without ever being prosecuted, without any charges against them, right? This was people deciding to be judge, jury, and executioner. And I know what you're saying. What does this have to do with the death penalty case? Because we're talking about getting it wrong, right? We're talking about literally getting it wrong and people paying with it for their lives. If you look at the history of this country, and Marc Lamonts most definitely made sure to say, we have no business, meaning the country, right? The United States has no business thinking that they can be executioner, because we get it wrong so many times. And with our bloody history of getting it wrong and it affecting black people, right? I just told you about Emmett Till, but I just told you about what we see in terms of the Karens just always lying. I told you about seeing black boys being accused living in the suburbs by white girls, and right? I've told you about that. I mean, even if you think about Ahmaud Arbery, and if you think about any of the I'm sorry, it's on the queue, the boy in Florida that George Zimmerman killed. Even if you think about it, we're talking about the audacity, the admitted gall to pick up your gun and act like the police and act like you can question another human being, black or white, but it's going to be a black person because you feel like you have authority over questioning black people. Now, I'm not in these streets and getting into nothing like that a white person's ever rolled up on me and questioned me like that. But I say that translates also to me. I look at it, how does that translate to me? Being in public or being at work and having to work with white people and feel like they don't respect my boundaries, or feeling like they feel like they can question me when they're not doing that to everyone else. Yes, most definitely it shows up, right? It shows up in everyday life, right? This just feeling as if though I can do this, right? Or you ever start working at a place and the white person feels like it's their job to watch the niggas in the spot? They're keeping up with your breaks. They're keeping up with whether or not you came back late, what time you came to work. Like you have a supervisor, and all because you're black and this white person feels like they need to be covered. I'm just talking about real life of what the black experience is in this country, right? But at the same time with saying that I don't believe in the death penalty, let's be clear. when it is clear cut and there can be nothing that be disputed, I want to be clear. There are people that have been killed and through the death penalty that deserve it. And that does not wipe that away, right? I'm not a sympathizer for people who commit crimes and ultimately taking people's lives. I'm not a sympathizer in that way. But what I am is a realist, and I'm able to look at facts and say, you get it wrong too many times. One life that is mistakenly taken is one too many. But we have situations, if you even think about the Central Park Five and being accused by that woman, right? Oh, I'm sorry, being charged and being accused, and then come to find out that that was a lie, right? It happens. You know how many cases we find that judges are getting money, or there was a judge who went to jail, or he was found out to be taking money because he would get a kickback for his sentencing. That happened. Yeah, most definitely that happened. So we're talking about the propensity of people in racism in a system that does not work for its people, meaning it's black people, right? Because we are its people. That does not work for us, right? And on why we don't believe in it. Marc Lamonts said he didn't believe it, and he used the Dylan Roof case as a reason. I don't care if, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't care if Dylan Roof was 10. He deserves the death penalty. Right? With that being said, I understood Marc Lamonts having a problem with the death penalty because it affects black people. But what you won't do is not be truthful about the history in this country in terms of why you feel the way you feel about the death penalty, what has happened to us throughout the years with the death penalty in terms of even if it was people doing it themselves. Like, it's a real thing, right? Our history in this country is deep. And being someone who always will must make sure to mention reparations and talk about my ADOS lineage, we have a story to tell that makes us say we want to be looked at as a separate people within this country because our history is like no other history, right? And 20 years down the road, I am not letting an African person or anybody other black person from anywhere, I hate that I even said Africa, any black person from anywhere feel like they can tell our story. Nobody's going to tell our story like we tell it. They don't even want to put it in books. So most definitely at this point, we back into olden times where we're having to make sure that we talk about it on a consistent basis so it does not get lost. That we drop nuggets that people get motivated to go look things up. And one of those nuggets, when you talk about death penalties and people feeling like taking crime into their own hands, we're going to talk about the black massacres that have happened in this country since the beginning, right? What we've endured, people feeling like it's their right to kill black people, right? Because they feel that they've done something wrong. And getting it wrong. This is the same thing of getting it wrong. There's this propensity in this country to try to punish black people. Right? Well, that's what we're talking about, overly trying to punish black people. If we're talking about judicially, if we're talking about in the streets, and feeling and getting away with it, right? Black Massacre. So this is a map. So you have different cities in the United States. As far west, it goes to Louisiana right here, right? So that's as far as it goes. That shows the history in the United States of massacres that have happened. If you have been living under a rock, you know this year we did celebrate Tulsa. I think it's been 100 years, and what happened there with them killing all of the black residents, or trying to kill all the black residents in what we call the Black Wall Street, and I think the Greenwood area of Tulsa, right? It was a vibrant, self-sufficient area filled with black people, affluent black people, educated black people, hardworking black people who had built a community that did not necessarily need white people. So we were very independent in this community. I guess they felt threatened by it. Something happened and they ended up burning it down and killing the people, right? So take that story and apply it to these cities, all these other cities and all these other years, and know that it resulted in deaths of black people at the hands of white people. Now, some of them could be police. I think in 1985, the move, I think that was the police and the, I want to get it right now, I don't want nobody to get mad at me, the Muslim community in Philadelphia. Sort of like a little bit of a cult. I want to be respectful because I don't want to call when I say cult, I'm not trying to apply evil, but sometimes like a secular, not secular, but religious community, or a community that is formed because they believe in a certain ideology and stuff like that. We're living in a particular area that the city of Philadelphia had evicted them from, and long story short, niggas died. Right. Right. So there's so many examples of this happening. You have 1919 in Chicago, 1908, 1863 in New York, 1863. What we now know is, let me look that up because I think that may be right because I had not heard there was a massacre with that. So I want to get it right in case I get it wrong. I don't want to be like saying shit on it. Okay, massacre. But I'm pretty sure that's the one of 1863. So this map is really important. If you really are somebody who needs to learn a little bit more, this is the map that you follow these dates in these cities and look it up just like I just did. And that's where it starts, right? Just going, being inquisitive and pulling things up, and taking a look and seeing what happened, right? Because that leads you to all these other cities and really getting true context of what the history of ADOS people have been in this country, right? I think a lot of times when I'm sitting on Clubhouse and I see a lot of Africans talk and, it's all like, I don't understand what's wrong. You guys are people or not, I think one girl, she even said, oh, I find that Americans don't travel as much. They're not as well traveled and this and, and cultured and blah, 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 blah. But if you've been blessed to be in this country and your family traveled here and, immigrated here and stuff like that, and you've been blessed with what you've been afforded through the hard work and blood and sweat and tears of what the black struggles has been in this country, please pipe down and understand. I can't go anywhere overseas and act like I can tell them people anything about anything within their country. And that's a period on period. And I think we have to get that type of swag in America, especially as black and ADOS people, of saying, you don't get to tell me shit about this country. And that's a period. And don't blink. That's how I feel. You don't get to tell me about the black experience in this country. What you do get to tell me is thank you for being able, what you do get to tell me is thank you. Right? Thank you for my grandma. Thank you for my all my ancestors. Thank you for what they've done. That's what the fuck you get to tell me. What you don't get to tell me about is this here country. So let's get back to this 1863. Okay, New York City draft riot. Okay, so look, I had it wrong. It wasn't the Central Park, but that's a real thing. They really cleared people out of the Central Park and took the land from them people so they could just plant trees and shit so they could walk through and Karens could come along in the future and accuse us of crimes and shit because she is uncomfortable. Okay, so what happened during the New York City draft riot of 1863? Initially intended to express anger at the draft, the protest turned into a race riot with white rioters, many of them Irish immigrants, attacking black people in violence throughout the city. The official death toll was listed at 119, 120 individuals. See? We're talking about we're talking about mob violence and feeling empowered to inflict this type of mob violence against our people. And consistently being the feeling. So when we talk about like what we experience in the Karens wanting to bother little girls selling lemonade on the sidewalks because they're so bothered, or barbecue Becky being mad because we trying to get a little grill on and eat her some food because she just mad because we put fucking seasoning on our food, so now she want to fuck up the cookout and shit like that. We're talking about the audacity to feel as if though you own something, right? The same kind of concept of the mentality that they had when they came in and took this land from its original people, right? I own this. You have to, ownership, right? Still to this day. Feeling like you own something, feeling like you the boss, feeling like you can call the shots. So this map is really important. So I encourage people to go back and pull these things up and take a look. There's still so many of here that I need to take a look and find out about. Especially the Detroit 1943. I didn't know about that one. The Charleston 2015, that's most definitely that's Dylan Roof, right? When he went in and killed 9 people. So that's a massacre, right? Anything about 2 people and its race is most definitely a massacre. So that's the 2015. And like I said, I didn't know anything about a 1906 in Atlanta or Falula in 1874. Okay, so y'all see the map. That's your homework assignment. I know y'all niggas are waiting for somebody to come and teach you all of this, but that's just not how life goes after you graduate high school. That's not even life how, like, even when people talk about the education system and needs to overall 52 weeks in a year. With that being said, we probably, let me see, 4, 8, 12, okay, weekends, holidays, um, vacation weeks during the week. Okay. 52 weeks in a, we probably, that's about 20 weeks. Yeah, 4, 8, 12, and then 8 more weeks, holidays and stuff. Okay, and weekends. Okay, so we probably spend 30 weeks in school. Let's just say, I ain't got the numbers in front of me and I don't feel like doing it. We probably spend about 30 weeks in overall in school with vacations, weekends, and holidays and summers and stuff like that. Probably spend 30 weeks in school. It is really hard to cover everything. What school is supposed to do, especially history class, they're brief, not brief, but they are introductions to different parts of history, right? Where you take it after that, after high school, in terms of your learning, that's all on you, and even in your self-learning. But what school is supposed to do is introduce it to you and get you to a point where you know what you're supposed to know in terms of the lesson. But you should be self-inquisitive to go figure the rest of it out, because there's just no way to include all the history that's needed. You would need, for what people think they want our curriculums to be changed to and stuff like that, you would need at least, by the time a kid reaches 7th grade, I do think our curriculums do need to be intensified, even in high school. Even in elementary school, with kids being introduced to things at so much of their early age, I think it can be sped up a little bit. About time kids are in 3rd grade, that it's pushed a little bit out from being so elementary school. That's just my personal opinion. Only because, like I said, they're so introduced to many things that a 3rd grader, 4th grader is very aware of sexual content. You see what's going on in the media, what people are being shown. This is not a judgment on that. I'm just saying they have a lot of information. So they're not babies anymore by the time they reach 3rd, 4th grade. With that being said, I think people don't realize, like, what you want schools to do for you is give you self-motivation, or you want school to be, they could have taught me so much more in high school, but that's not to say that I would have remembered it all, right? School is to give you a certain skill set to be able to develop into self-learning, be able to collect information, be able to critically think about information, and being able to express and articulate what you think about your opinions about that. Like school does that for you, but then by no means are going to be able to give you all of anything in terms of, like, even if you're talking about biology, like you have lessons and you try to pick the most important things. So I don't know, school will never be to a place where they're going to be able to include everything. And I think people's expectations is really too high, all to not just be, self-reliant and be their own teachers. All right. So with that being said, so Marc Lamonts, back to the unpopular opinion. He used the Dylann Roof case. And I said, when I did my video, now, if you wanted to talk about mentally challenged people being wrongfully executed or being executed in general, and them having, like, being mentally challenged, or they having mental health issues or some type of disability, life itself and circumstances because of all those things happen, that they may have committed or did something and they have been sentenced to death. If you wanted to talk about that being an issue, meaning that overly that black people are overly being executed, and a lot of people present themselves of having mental issues, mentally delayed, any of those things. Like, if you wanted to make that case, I most definitely understand, right? I most definitely understand if that was the case, that Dylann Roof is mentally delayed, he's off or something. Like, if you wanted to make that case and say, hey, because of these circumstances and because how he grew up and him being mentally challenged and all this other stuff, that I don't believe in a death penalty, and this is why, because it gravely affects black people in a way that is just, because they don't get it right, that we're gravely more affected by it because of our circumstances in this country. And this is an example of it, but it's a lot of examples in the black community. Like, if he wanted to do that, I would have been with it. Like, okay, Mark, you got that. But because he picked a case that was so cut and dry, and because we have all the situations in terms of the death penalty being done by the mob or being done through the judicial system with racism and all types of things like that, and us being convicted, wrongfully convicted, and them getting it wrong. The example I have that is of this case. So I talked about the Marc Lamonts, and immediately this came out. Not in, and there's so many cases. They're like literally, I'm pulling up Troy Davis, another person wrongfully executions. Right, there was a case in the in where I'm from, Sean Ellis. There was a video, a documentary featured on Netflix where he talks about where he was wrongfully accused of killing a police officer. Boy wasn't even there. Okay, boy wasn't even there. Okay, wrongfully accused by police officers in some grand scheme by some dirty cops. Right, he was going to spend almost the rest of his life in jail. Right. So with the hard work of people and uncovering certain things and finding out that there was just this conspiracy of dirty cops and people involved, he was being able to be released. So this is what we're talking about when we say that they get it wrong. This is another case of 4 years after a man's execution. Lawyers say DNA from the murder weapon points to someone else. 4 years. This man died. Right? Liddell Lee was executed for murder in a flurry of lethal injections that divided the Supreme Court. Proceeded despite lawyers calling for the DNA testing. They didn't even want to do the DNA testing that would have cleared him. Right? So that's why so many people, are against the death penalty, because we know what that looks like when they get it wrong. Here goes another case, another extreme case. Remember I said the Central Park Five was also another case where a white woman accused 5 black boys of raping her. Right? Make sure I get it right, y'all. I be doing a lot of this shit off the dome, so if I gotta pull some shit up, a lot of times I have to. The Central Park 5 jogger case was a criminal case in the United States over the aggravated assault and rape of a white woman in Manhattan Central Park on April 19, 1989, occurring during a string of other attacks in the park the same night. All right, so that happened, and then there was this five young boys, and as you can see here, they were convicted and was spending their life in prison, right? So come to find out that it was wrong. It was not them, right? You have here, just came out the other day, 7 young black men electrocuted. Okay, this is when they were still doing the electrocutions. In the 1949 rape of a white woman granted posthumous pardons by Virginia governor. A group of black men who were executed in the 1949 rape of a white woman were granted pardons by Virginia Governor Ralph Northam on August 31st. The men: Frank Harrison Jr., 18, Booker T. Milner, 19, Francis DeSales Grayson, 37, Howard Lee Harrison, 18, James Luther Harrison, 20. Look at that, y'all. Look at those last names. That means that these men were related. That's 3 of them. Joe Henry Hampton, 19, and John Claiborne Taylor, 21, of Martinsville, were executed in 1951 and in 1949 rape of Ruby Strode. Floyd, a 32-year-old white woman, fuck that bitch. Strode had gone to a mostly black neighborhood on January 8th, 1949, to receive payment for clothes she sewed. All of the men known as the Martinsville Seven were tried by an all-white jury. That they represent the largest group of people executed for a single person crime in the state's history. Wow. Look at those men's faces, y'all. So no, I can't let you tell my story. I can't let you take Adolf's people and call us black and it represents everybody, because everybody ain't got this story in this country. You know what's going on in your country, them people's or your people's country, but in this country you don't got the same story. And so that's why we go out of our way to talk about, and that's why we're against the death penalty. While these pardons do not address the guilt of the 7, they serve as a recognition from the Commonwealth that these men were tried without adequate due process and received a racially biased death sentence not similarly applied to white defendants. And that's literally what the history has been in our country. If you talk about the 94 crime bill, we're talking about disproportionately black people being sentenced, right, compared to the white counterparts. This has been going on since 1949, 1951, right, and even before that. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about the history within our country. And this is why we can't be for the death penalty, because they don't get it right. Technology and human beings don't get it right. I don't know. I wanted to bring that to y'all. I didn't want to talk too long. I just wanted to give you out for half an hour. But there's so many different cases like this out there, y'all, that you should take the time to look into and come to a different conclusion. You can feel how you want to feel about Marc Lamonts, but when you get to the place where you are unable to take factual information and throw away the fact that you don't like someone, it is what it is. You don't have to like him, but he was most definitely telling the truth. He just used the wrong example in the wrong type of case, especially when it's like black and white. I want to be extremely clear when I say again, when it comes to black people that may have been executed, that most definitely deserve it, because we are 100% on they did what they did. That's not what this is about. Like, those people deserved to be executed, right? And I think a lot of time people forget. I can call out some names. Like, famously, Tookie Williams, which is the original founder and creator of the Crips gang out in Los Angeles, he was executed. And a lot of times people felt like he shouldn't have been executed. He had gave his life over. He had changed his life. He got all these degrees. He had written books, and he was still executed. Could they have spared him? Yes. Was he convicted guilty and was put to death because for a murder or someone died? Most definitely, right? And was it cut and dry that he was involved? Most definitely, right? Nobody disputes that, but people felt like he had stayed in jail for so long that he gave his life that he should have been free. I can't say the same thing in those ways, because the death penalty worked the way it was supposed to work. So there are those times, and I feel like I am not saying I'm against the death penalty, because I don't believe in the concept if you kill somebody you should die for. What I don't believe is in this motherfucking country to get it right. That's what the fuck I don't believe in. And because of human error and racism and people's propensity to lie, most definitely. Yeah, I can't be for it. But when they get it right and there's no questions, and if we can get it right, I'm here for it. I think there was a case, and I'm not to say that he's on death penalty, but the death row. But there's some cases that we hear about in terms of like American Gangster and some of these niggas have laid down 7 to 8 bodies. What you mean they don't like that deserves a death penalty? But again, I understand we don't get it right in so many other ways in other cases that aren't cut and clean and clear on who did what. All right, y'all, I'm gonna get out of here, y'all. So I hope that helps. So if this is your first time here, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Y'all know how we do here. We keep it bougie, we keep it posh, we keep it black as F, and y'all be black, y'all. And I'm out.